most famous cases and has remained unsolved. But many people have theories about, what happened in terms of the various victims that were involved. So this is initially it's the murder case of Joan Robinson Hill, but there were two other killings that occurred afterwards. So we'll begin this first article from the New York Daily News, and then I think there is one more that kind of gives a roundup of what happened afterwards. So let's begin. Money, beauty, talent, and horses. The woman had everything. On top of it all, she was married to a millionaire doctor, one of the top plastic surgeons in the region. It did not seem possible that such a charmed life could end so horribly after days of agony, but in the morning of March 19th, 1969, Hill was being treated for low blood pressure, an infection, uncontrollable diarrhea, and an ill-equipped hospital. Around 1:30 a.m., she sat up, vomited, and took her last breath. The doctors never managed to pinpoint exactly what was wrong with her. Her husband of 12 years, John Hill, 38, was sleeping in another part of the hospital at the moment of her death. He came to her room moaning, "No, no, no," and making all kinds of noises befitting a grief-stricken husband, wrote Thomas Thompson in his 1976 bestseller Blood and Money. Still, few were surprised that by the first week of June he had remarried to bombshell divorcee Anne Kurth. So I believe this is Joan Robinson Hill, who was a championship horse rider, as well as she competed in various things. I'm not sure exactly what part of the equestrian world she was, if she was jumping horses or riding them for speed, but in any case she won a lot of trophies. Hill and Kurth had met when they had gone to visit their kids at summer camp. That same month, Joan's father demanded that his daughter's corpse be exhumed and re-examined. Ash Robinson was certain that his son-in-law was eager to marry his new flame. He had somehow poisoned Joan. Robinson gathered evidence, including recollections of friends who had dined with the couple at their home. The dinner guests told of the doctor's strange pastry ritual. He carefully handed the delicacies out, making sure that Joan got the eclair. He refused to let her switch for other goodies. This was enough to convince Robinson that the bad pastries were tainted. He also gathered gossip about the couple's rocky marriage. The doctor was annoyed that his wife spent so much time with her horses. She objected to his hobbies, music, and other women. The second autopsy found that Joan might have died from viral hepatitis, but it was impossible to say for sure. The body had been embalmed before the first autopsy, making it difficult to come to any solid conclusion about the cause of death. It wasn't much, but Robinson would not give up. In February 1970, Hill was indicted for murder by omission. This rarely used charge pertains to cases where people have the opportunity to save someone but fail to do so. Dr. Hill's prosecutors argued that he withheld medical care that could have kept Joan alive. Even the hospital he chose was substandard. It was a slim case, but by the time he came to trial in February of 1971, Dr. Hill had another problem: the fury of his new ex. Robinson. Okay, so this is with John Hill, according to his second wife. So you can see all the trophies she has. And there was, I guess, a significant age difference between the two, but she definitely was a very well-known equestrian within these, I guess, socialite circles. The Hill-Girth romance had soured quickly, and the couple divorced after a stormy 9 months. Girth was given the rare opportunity to publicly, in front of a jury, dump on the man who dumped her. Her performance on the stand was the stuff of legend. Girth told of their courtship and how he yearned to marry her, but Joan would not let go. She recalled that she saw him growing something in petri dishes in the bachelor pad he had set up after his separation from Joan in 1968, but the most damning words focused on what happened after Joan was dead and Dr. Hill had taken a second wife. Trouble erupted almost overnight. He screamed at her in outbursts of paranoia and finally tried to murder her by slamming the passenger side of their Cadillac into a concrete bridge. When that didn't kill her, he came after her with a needle and syringe. She was certain that it contained some kind of poison. Only the intervention of a passerby in a car kept her alive. During cross-examination, Girth brought the trial to an abrupt end when she blurted out that he told me he killed Joan with a needle. The judge declared a mistrial. Hill would never face a jury again. On September 24th, 1972, 2 months before his scheduled retrial, the doctor was gunned down in his mansion, moments after he and his third wife had returned from Las Vegas. On the surface, it appeared to be a robbery, but there were strong suspicions that this was the work of millionaire daddy Ash Robinson, who was tired of waiting for justice. A few months after the killing, police charged Bobby Wayne Vandiver with the shooting. Vandiver said that a Houston Madam Leila Paulus had paid him with his prostitute girlfriend, Marcia McKittrick, to shoot Hill and make it look like a robbery. Rumor was that this was a murder for hire arranged by Ash Robinson. Before the trio could come to trial, Vandiver was shot dead by police in an unrelated incident. McKittrick agreed to testify against Paulus and got a decade behind bars. Paulus was sentenced to 35 years. Robinson and his wife moved to Florida, where he died at 87 of natural causes. He lived long enough to see his family's sad saga become a made-for-TV movie fodder. In Murder in Texas, starring Sam Elliott as Dr. Hill and Farrah Fawcett as the Golden Girl, and Andy Griffith as her vengeful dad. Okay, so we're going to jump to the other article right now because it just gives a little closure to what happened after that, case with Paulus and Vandiver and McKittrick. Okay, so one sec. Okay, so this is from the New York Times. So Ash Robinson was a very wealthy oil man. So it says oil man is cleared in Houston murder of his son-in-law. So that is the article. I tried to enlarge it before, but it doesn't. I'm not able to do it. I guess you have to be subscribed to this or something. Anyway, October 21st, Houston. A state civil court jury in Houston today cleared Davis Ashton Robinson, a 79-year-old Texas oil man, of the charges that to avenge the death of his daughter, Joan Robinson Hill, he conspired in the murder of his son-in-law, Dr. John Hill, in 1972. Dr. Hill, a prominent Houston plastic surgeon, was shot to death in the foyer of his home. Special to the New York Times, the unanimous judgment followed more than 2 days of deliberations in the $7.6 million civil damage suit filed by Dr. Hill's third wife, Connie, his mother, Myra, and his son, Robert. Joan Robinson Hill died of a mysterious illness in 1969 at the age of 38. Dr. Hill was charged with having withheld proper medical treatment from her, but a mistrial was declared in the case. Mr. Robinson has said that he believed Dr. Hill murdered her and has been quoted as saying that he felt fiendishly vindictive toward his son-in-law. We all agreed there was a conspiracy, but there was not enough evidence, Michael C. Shetler, one of the jurors, said shortly after the verdict was announced. Under Texas civil statutes, guilt does not have to be proved beyond a reasonable doubt, and only a 10-2 vote is required for conviction. The jury determined that monetary damage could total $840,000 for the Hills, but it said that since Mr. Robinson was not guilty of the conspiracy charge, he could not be forced to pay. The head of the law firm that brought the suit on Hill's family on behalf of Richard Hayden said that afternoon Ash Robinson hasn't seen the end of this yet. Although Mr. Robinson was a suspect in the criminal investigation that followed Dr. Hill's murder, Carol Vance, the Houston District Attorney, said that not enough evidence existed to bring criminal charges against him. He denied under oath that he had had anything to do with the death of Dr. Hill. I did want him prosecuted, and he said he was guilty when convicted and punished for it. Mr. Robinson told the jury there was no intention any which way in the world of killing or having him killed. The emotional highlight of the trial came when Marcia McKintrick, 27, a former prostitute who is serving a prison sentence as an accomplice to the murder plot, directly linked Mr. Robinson to the scheme to murder Dr. Hill, referring at times to the storybook nature of the crime. Miss McKintrick described secret meetings between Mr. Robinson and Leela Paulus, the alleged go-between, in a hospital parking lot in Houston. She said that Mrs. Paulus had admitted receiving large amounts of money from Mr. Robinson, and that those meetings Mrs. Paulus was sentenced to prison later for participating in the murder plan, but refused to testify in the civil suit. Mr. Robinson denied that the meetings ever took place. A man named Bobby Wayne Vandiver, the alleged hired killer of Dr. Hill, was shot and killed in 1974 by a policeman in Longview. The police were pursuing him after he jumped bail. The trial also served as a vivid illustration of the tense relationship between Dr. Hill's survivors and Mr. Robinson. Although they sat beside one another throughout the 7-week trial, they did not speak to one another at any time except while testifying. The widespread success of the novel Blood and Money, based on the case, added to the flavor of the trial. William Friedkin, the director of the 1973 film The Exorcist, had been assigned to direct a film version of the novel, and his presence in the courtroom last week fueled speculation over casting possibilities. Mr. Robinson has filed a $20 million libel suit in federal court against Thomas Thompson, the author of Blood and Money, and Doubleday, the company the publisher charging the book wrongly accuses and hints of complicity in Dr. Hill's murder. Okay, so basically, that just, got Ash Robinson. There just wasn't enough evidence to, say that he was directly involved with making the payments truthfully if they were able to get the Madame Paulus, the woman who ran the prostitution house, to testify. Maybe they would have gotten some more information case, you're not required to. That's kind of strange. But anyway, um, they didn't have enough evidence to prosecute him, and he died at 87 from natural causes. So anyway, this is it's such a bizarre case because you have this more or less like a beauty queen type of person, you know, who was actually adopted. Her parents, you know, were very wealthy. Ash Robinson was a very prominent oil man. He had struck oil in Texas and had that sort of storybook, you know, life of just suddenly striking it rich, and made a huge go of it within the oil industry. Made a lot of money, was this, you know, prominent person within Houston society, was married to a socialite, and the one thing that they didn't have, even though they had pretty much everything they could have wanted, she couldn't have children, and so they decided to adopt. So they adopted this little girl, named her Joan, and from a very young age she was introduced to horses. I guess they had horses on their property, but she just took a particular liking to them, and it was, I guess, a sort of pastime within that socialite community to sort of encourage this equestrian sort of lifestyle. It was the one kind of sport that girls were not only encouraged, but it was kind of considered a sort of sophisticated thing to do. You know, that these, I think it was emulating some of the British, you know, whether it was royalty or whatever they were emulating. It was just something within the socialite society that had maintained, you know, across the sea, and something about it was very popular within that particular culture, and she excelled within this particular field. She, you know, was winning awards for it from a very young age. Then by the time she became, I think she was 19, she suddenly ran off and got married, was married for a very short time, and then remarried, and then I think she was on her third marriage. Actually, I think she was 21 when she finally got involved with this surgeon, John Hill. So he was older than her, an established plastic surgeon. I'm not sure exactly how they met, but because he was so wealthy from his business as a plastic surgeon, they might have been cavorting in the same circles, and, you know, she felt that he provided a certain amount of security for her and the lifestyle that she led, because, you know, he was very wealthy, and I think he also presented himself as a kind of father figure for her, because, you know, she's only 21. So anyway, they married, they had one child, and there was a little bit of stress within the marriage because, you know, 21, she's still young enough to pursue her particular first love, which was this horse riding, and she spent a tremendous amount of time with the horses, training and doing whatever she was doing, preparing for competitions and so forth. And I guess, according to John Robinson, he felt kind of left out, even though he was very busy himself. I think it was just a situation where the two actually did not have that much in common. So, you know, when they were together, it just seemed like she had nothing to talk about except for her, you know, escapades with the horses. And, you know, he had his own situation going on with his business, so they really did not have that much in common. I think that he just found a very young and attractive girl who was, you know, within this social echelon. She was just this big deal within the community, and I think it sort of solidified his place within that, you know, community as well. And I think that's probably why he got married, but I don't think they actually got along. common, and so he started to apparently have affairs, according to her, or the gossip from her friends, that he started running around with various people, and she would find out about it, but she was resistant to get a divorce. Now the question is, why was she resistant? She would have, come out of that situation financially fine. It was really either a status issue, that she didn't want to be known as a divorcee, or she actually really loved him and she didn't want to give him up for whatever reason. It was unclear what her motivations were, but he, on numerous occasions over the years, tried to file for divorce, and for some reason she refused to not only sign the papers, but various other methods were used to kind of keep him to remain within the marriage. It could have also just been because they had a child, and there are various issues. I think once a person is a kind of public figure within this socialite community, and she might have felt pressure to keep up appearances, I'm not really sure, but John Hill had some kind of a secondary passion of becoming a musician or singing or making an album or something like that. So when they bought this house, her father was coaxed into lending them money to build a music studio within the house. So the house, I think, cost $69,000 or something like that. It was under $100,000. The actual purchase of the entire house, but the remodeling of that single room, that music studio, ended up costing over $100,000, and that was almost like a bribe to keep, this is according to friends and gossip and whatever, that was almost a bribe to keep her husband there, because, every time he tried to leave or tried to bring up divorce papers or something like that, some addition was made, to that music center, and then he would stick around. It's a very weird kind of an arrangement, but that's apparently what was going on, according to people that knew her and him. And so anyway, they're now living at this house for, I'm not really sure, a little over a year. It's summertime. Their son goes to summer camp. He goes to visit at some point at, in the middle of the summer. There's a parent day kind of a thing. He goes to visit him. He meets another woman who is the mother of another attendee at the summer camp. Her name is Ann Kurth, and she actually looks quite a bit like a younger version of Joan Robinson. They get along. They start an affair, basically. Ann Kurth was also within these social networks. She was also well-to-do, and was already divorced, I believe, so she was ready to go in terms of remarrying, and was maybe putting a little bit of pressure on the doctor to leave this unhappy marriage that he was probably complaining about constantly, and marry her. So they had only been seeing each other like 2 months or something like that. It was not a particularly long courtship, but everybody knew about it. Somehow the gossip had already started. Joan found out about it, was livid, and basically confronted him. He said, yes, they're involved and he wants a divorce, and he actually brought the papers. He had them already, made up for her. She refused to sign, and there was a big fight. There was like a major fight that neighbors had heard, and it was like a major major issue. Somehow her father got involved again at the last minute. Whether an agreement was made about the studio was unclear, but basically a threat was made to Joan Robinson by Ash that, he could very easily call back the loan that he had made in terms of the studio, the money that he had paid. It was well over $100,000. And John did not have that money, so they were getting, a little bit, it was getting a lot more intense. They were not now trying to bribe the doctor, now it was getting into the realm of threats. And so he called Ann Kurth, who they were supposed to meet that weekend, I think in Mexico, and said that he would not be able to come and that he was not going to be able to get the divorce. And I don't know what reasoning he gave, if that phone call was made in front of Joan or what exactly happened. But Ann Kurth was extremely angry about, the situation, and because she was sort of jilted and placed aside, and he was back for, a short period, was seemingly back in the marriage. Okay, so now I think a week passes after this big hubbub, and a dinner party is set up for, I'm not sure what the occasion was, but all of their friends came to this particular dinner party, so it was like a big thing. They, had everybody was over there, and in a weird, this was kind of strange that the host of the party, John, brings out these, like a pastry tray at the end of the night. And it's a little weird because, this is like a very big, to do kind of a thing. They have servers. Why is he bringing out, a tray at the end of the night? Everybody was kind of suspicious about, not really suspicious at the time, but I guess they thought it was funny or strange why he's coming out with the tray, because you never see a situation like that. The servers would come out with the tray, and it wasn't like he was bringing out something so unbelievable. He was bringing out pastries. It would have been a normal dessert. Most of the time that stuff is just brought out, placed at, the various placings, and that should be the end of it. But he came out and made a point of self-serving each of these pastries, and so for most of the people, they would, say, okay, I want this, I want the whatever pastry it was, and he was giving it to them. He had one eclair, on the plate, but he was not giving that to anybody. He made a major point that no, the eclair is for Joan. That's her favorite. And so, I guess people thought it was some sort of a cutesy kind of a thing. I guess Joan felt flattered by it or whatever. Nobody really questioned it right at the time. He could have had several eclairs on the plate. It's like a very popular sort of a pastry, but he only had one, and he was going to give it to her. Nobody else could have it. Everyone else could have whatever they wanted, but he went through this ritual of serving the entire table, and then he gives the eclair to Joan. Great. So she eats it. They all eat it. Everything seems to be fine. By the next morning, however, Joan wasn't feeling well, and her tennis partner or something came to the house at 2 or something in the afternoon, said that she had not arrived for the tennis game, and he said, oh, she must have overslept. I gave her a tranquilizer last night, and that was apparently confirmed that, yeah, she must have overslept. She wasn't feeling that great. That later continued, and she started getting worse, basically. It was by that evening to the point that she really should have been taken to the hospital. But the doctor did not take her to the hospital. So she was already having convulsions and very various other reactions. It was getting very serious, whatever was going on with her. It seemed like a case of food poisoning as far as the maids and the other people were concerned. They could not understand why she was not being taken to the hospital, but he was saying no, she doesn't want to go, which probably wasn't true. She probably would have gone. He did, it seems, did not want to take her. So that night passed, and then it was the next night, and now I think we're on the third night. And on the third night, she was really doing badly. The nurse, not the nurse, but one of the maids called her parents' house, Joan's parents' house, and said she is not doing well. He's not taking her to the hospital. And then her mother called John and said, you have to take her to the hospital. What is going on? We're coming over. So he's like, no, she didn't want to go. I'm going to take her now. I'm going to force her to go. So he picks her up, takes her to the hospital, but they had a hospital like only a few miles away from their house, which was a major hub hospital, so it had all of the facilities and everything available. He doesn't go to that hospital. He goes to a hospital that's 45 minutes away that is not equipped to handle this sort of a case, or really any kind of a case. It didn't even have an emergency room. It's more of like an outpatient sort of little rural hospital. For some unknown reason, he goes to that one and, gets her admitted. They don't know what to do. They don't have experts. They actually are calling people from the main hospital to come and see her by morning, to see what's going on. And she was only in that hospital for a couple of hours. I don't know if it was 14 hours or whatever the case was. But by morning, there was not even a chance of any of the doctors who had come to even help her or save her or anything, because she had not received any treatment. She was basically just in the bed in that hospital. So it was a totally useless effort, and so people felt, especially by the time, the case became well known, that he had kind of purposefully done this because there was a proper place to take her, and there was a time to take her, and he had neglected to do both. So they felt it was done on purpose. But anyway, she passed at that hospital, and the law in Texas is that when somebody dies within a hospital within a 24-hour period, you are required by law to do an autopsy. You cannot just bury them. That's not allowed. And for some unknown reason, state law was bypassed by the doctor's request that she should be embalmed right away. So the law was essentially broken. Really, he was asking favors of these people at this hospital, and they went ahead and embalmed her without an autopsy, even though she had only been at the facility for 14 hours, and she was required to have an autopsy, whether the family had requested it or not. It was a state law. So anyway, she's embalmed. Her family is notified after the fact that this has happened, so they weren't even called, during that 14 hours, to come and see their daughter or anything like that, which is also kind of strange. She should have called and said, hey, we're here now, come and see her or whatever. But they were not called or even told which hospital they were at. He had kind of kept them out of the loop after that initial phone call that they had made. So they were told after she was embalmed that, this had all happened. And because he was her, I guess, primary, as her spouse, the parents could not call for an autopsy right away, once the embalming was done. But in any case, after that, within, I think it was 2 months, he married Ann Kurth, that woman that he was seeing from the camp, from years, 1971, that a case was brought against the doctor that he had purposefully, neglected to take proper care for his wife in this situation, not taking her on time and not taking her to appropriate hospital. And so it's called murder by omission, which is a very rare, nobody really uses that, but it was the only thing that they had on the law books that they could bring against him as basically a kind of neglect claim against him. So anyway, he was brought to trial, and by this point, however, he had now had this second divorced person who was angry with him, Ann Kurth, who comes on the stand at a certain point and starts making all of these claims. Now it's unclear, was Ann Kurth making it up, or just as in animosity, or was there some legitimacy to what she was saying? So she said that at some point, once the relationship went sour between them, he tried to murder her, first by trying to kill her in the car, and then a second time by coming after her with a needle. And so she said he was a very dangerous person. Now, the thing that struck me as interesting was her claim that he was growing some sort of a substance in petri dishes at his particular bachelor pad. Now, this is a plastic surgeon, so he's not like a, type of doctor that would be growing things. He's not like a scientist or microbiologist or something that is going to be growing anything in a petri dish for work. And also, just, why would she say that? And the thing is that at the time of the trial, Ash Robinson, the father, had made a request to exhume Joan's body and investigate, to do an autopsy post-mortem to see what evidence they could find. And basically, the evidence from there were two autopsies done. From the first autopsy, the post-mortem one, of the, post-embalming, and so many years afterwards, because she was already in for like 3 years, was that she had died from a massive bacterial infection. And the second one showed that it may have been viral hepatitis. So it was unclear because so much time had passed, and they probably didn't have, the best methods to investigate, what it was. They might actually be able to exhume her now and see if they have traces of anything there that they could signify, but again, they wouldn't be able to point the finger because they don't know where she would have, contracted that particular bacterial or viral infection. But she had all of the symptoms also of somebody who was suffering from a major infection, probably bacterial. And my question is, how much of this information had already come out in the newspapers? If none of it had come out, and if it had not come out at the trial, then that gives Ann Kurth's testimony more legitimacy. If she just happens to say that, okay, he was growing some stuff in a petri dish, but if she already knew that that Joan had died from a bacterial infection, then to bring up the petri dishes might have been made up just to kind of corroborate that theory that he had grown something in the petri dishes and then mixed it into the cream of the eclair and only had the one, and that he was definitely going to give it to her, and that was the whole plan of how it was going to go down. I don't know what was released in the newspapers, but that would be something to investigate and find I don't think it would be a common thing for even somebody who's vindictive to actually even come up with if she didn't know how, the situation had gone down. Because from from the initial reports, it seemed like she had some kind of food poisoning, but it wasn't clear as to what was going on. That was only found at the autopsy, that there was just a massive infection that had occurred. So anyway, I don't know how much Ann Kurth knew. I don't know how much it was of her testimony was just anger at being ditched by this doctor after only 9 months. It's unclear what was going on, but there was clearly a fight, between him and her, and him and the former wife. So he had issues for sure. And then he got married a third time before, even I think 3 or 4 months had passed. So he's like marrying people and having affairs and then divorcing them, or possibly killing them and then getting married again. So he's now on his third marriage, because of Ann Kurth's kind of crazy testimony. No one expected so much information to come out or what to do with it, and since she was blurting things out, the jury could possibly have been tainted by her information. That trial was ended as a mistrial. So he's now coming for his second trial. He's on vacation with his third wife in Las Vegas, shows up and is gunned down pretty brutally. A sort of false robbery seems to have taken place, but nothing of serious note was taken. And so the police are very suspicious as to what the heck was going on. They find the guy Vandiver. Vandiver is bizarrely gunned down himself by police, which again is kind of strange. But it was he wasn't just gunned down randomly. He was skipping out on bail, and a lone officer shot him. Now the question is, was that officer paid to shoot him? Was this a guy who was on payroll by Ash or somebody, and was paid to shoot Vandiver so that he would be quiet? The thing is, Vandiver had already given his statement at that point, and he said he was paid by the Madam Paulus, and that's all he knew. He didn't know anything further in his final statement. So he did not bring Ash Robinson. The person who brought Ash Robinson into the case was his girlfriend, who was a prostitute at the brothel house that Paulson ran, and she said that Paulson had told her that they were meeting in parking lots, like hospital parking lots and different places around the city, making these cash exchanges and also planning out how they were going to do this particular murder of the doctor, because Ash felt that he was never going to be arrested, that he was just a slick kind of character and he was going to get out of it, and there really wasn't a tremendous amount of evidence against him either, so it's possible that he would have. And it seems like this might have been something that the father would have done, and he had the means and he had the connections to do it, and maybe would have gone this route of hiring, this madam to find somebody, somebody who was working within the criminal world, and so he would basically be out of it. She got a lot of money apparently, and Vandiver, the person, only got $5,000 for doing the crime. It's not clear how much the girlfriend got, and nobody knows how much the Paulson got either. This was an amount of money that kept the Paulson, quiet during the actual criminal lawsuit, so it must have been a significant amount. No one knows how much, but she didn't testify against Ash, and then nobody did, so probably he was involved, and this was the only way he felt he could get justice against the doctor. really strange that 3 people died, just because somebody was unhappy in their marriage and was involved in a situation that they felt they somehow couldn't get out of. There must have been a better way, but it does seem like the doctor probably did kill his wife. Uh, you know, it's just strange how weird the planning of it was, that to, bring in all of her friends and then have this party and then, suddenly decide to do something like this. I don't know. It's pretty sordid if that was how he was thinking, and then to let her suffer that much. But the thing is, probably if she had gone to the right hospital right at the beginning, they would have figured it out, given her antibiotics or given her something to flush her system, and she would have gotten better. It was clearly whatever he had given her, if it was him. He knew it was something that was resolvable if it was done in a good amount of time. So by letting this go 3-4 days, it sort of ensured that she wasn't going to get better, and then taking her to a substandard hospital where the staff was not able to handle the situation, and they were kind of relying on him, who was apparently downplaying the whole thing. They were not doing testing, they were not doing anything. They were waiting for doctors to come in from another hospital, and they couldn't save her. So it's kind of unclear in terms of, how badly he just wanted to get out, and if there was just simply not any other way in his mind to get out of the situation. But it seems like this is possibly what happened, and for Ankerth to say that he killed Joan with a needle, that's a little strange too. Is it a situation where he had a syringe just to basically take her out of her misery, kind of a thing? Because, normally a person would be sleeping, either in the same room or close by, but it's possible that he injected her with something, and then he was apparently in the other wing of the hospital sleeping, and then he miraculously shows up right at the time that she's just about to die. It was, I don't know, it's a strange thing. Maybe he was called, I don't really know. That end saga, the ending was kind of dramatic too, but why would Ankerth say that Joan was killed by needle? I mean, if the issues were revolving around bacterial infection in petri dishes and stuff like that, so maybe he did first initially poison her with this bacteria or fungus or whatever, and got her into a situation. Maybe he saw her was sort of recovering, or was worried that by morning those other doctors were coming in and they would just do a blood test and check her, and they would probably be able to fix her. And he didn't want that to happen, and so he had this injection ready to go, possibly of what, I don't know, but something to just, get her to the point that she wouldn't be able to come out of it. And she didn't, she passed. So I don't know if he was, that's really a horrible person, to be sitting there and thinking of all of these things. And in a way you can understand, especially if the dad feels that he's done all of this stuff and is not there won't be any justice in terms of jail or whatever, that this was the only way he could think of to, put closure to it. It's not right, it's not good, but at the same time you can sort of understand where a father would be coming from if he believed all of these things. But the actions of Joan Robinson are such that I can understand why he would believe all of this stuff. He's acting like a really bad guy through, not only during the marriage, but especially in the end. All of the things that he was doing, and then marrying people so upset by this that he just felt there was no other way. Um, but I guess if he was involved with John's murder, he did pay the right person enough money to at least keep her mouth shut. She would have, I mean, she served a 35-year sentence, so it has to have been a lot to keep her quiet because she has no reason to send this Vandiver guy to go and shoot John Hill. Like, what does she have to do with it? So clearly, she was hired to be this middleman for this particular transaction, and I guess she figured the amount that she had would serve her in the end once her sentence was done. I don't know how old Paulson was when she went in, but still 35 years is a really long sentence, and then to somehow agree to keep quiet, it has to have been a significant amount, I'm thinking. Okay, so anyway, this is the very strange case of a Houston family. There's a book and a movie out in regards to this, but it's a very famous case. It's considered unsolved, but I think everybody sort of knows who the perpetrators were. But I guess everybody kind of got there. Everybody involved, other than the initial victim, Joan Robinson Hill. The other two individuals did get their just desserts in a way, but the other person who I guess was never really arrested or never really called in was the dad who kind of made the final decision to gain some sort of closure on the case from his perspective. So one person kind of got away with it, but I think he was suffering, emotionally from the loss of his young daughter because she was only 38. So, and she was his whole world kind of a thing. So, there was just, this was a sad story. There was nobody who really got out of this situation happy. I mean, John Hill marrying all these people afterwards didn't help. He was miserable, and the whole situation was bad from top to bottom. So anyway, a strange case coming out of Texas, and we'll see what we can come up with next week, guys. So I hope you have a good night.